Okay, so what we're getting ready to do here, I'm going to show you how to get to this point where the lead outs are attached. I made a video a while back. It was on a cell phone. It turned out terrible, so I'm going to remake it. And basically I'm just going to cover all the steps, not for the bell crank itself, but the attachment of the lead outs. Okay, so here's a bell crank. I already removed some of the flashing. I'm going to go through here and clean it up a little bit more. And just a good file. That's what I use. I'll just go around here and take the flash off. It doesn't take too long. I do most of it with a Dremel tool. In here, I take a carbide burr, a fine tooth, on a Dremel tool with the RPM turned down, maybe about 2/3 of the way down, and that gets me where I need to be. So here I'm just taking off the extra that squeezes through the mold. That's where it comes out. This was always my favorite part, actually grinding these things up. Let me turn my comments on here, see if let's see here. I'm running this new program here. Trying to get used to how it works. I think I got the screen resolution figured out. At this point, if you're actually doing this kind of work, it's probably beneficial if you wear a pair of rubber gloves, like a surgeon's glove, the same glove you'd wear to lay up. The only trouble is, when it comes to handling small parts, at least I do, I lose my dexterity. I have a hard time with small parts. So this file's good for the nice flat stuff, and I switched to a smaller file to get in the tighter spots. And then I use a round file to get it in the corners. I've got a little downdraft table. I do a lot of this. I'll hook it up to a vacuum where all this stuff goes sucking down through the little table. Go to a round file. These are just little cheap needle files. Like I said, the web that comes with this bell crank has already been cleaned out. I'm just trying to get the fine little extras that are left over. Okay, once you get it to this stage, you're about ready to start putting bushings in it. When I clean this flash, try to tilt the file away and just sort of stay on the corner. It's easy to go too far. And you can back it up and follow up, I guess, with 320 or 600 if you want. It's really not necessary. Alright, now let me clean this up. Okay, the next step, these are pre-cut. Let's see, where'd they go? These little bushings here go in the lead-out location. This little bushing is pre-made on a lathe. This is phosphor bronze, so they could be used with a 3/32 push rod, or if you want, you can just go ahead and run a 440 tap through it. So this phosphor bronze bushing, I got it a little oversized, and it's sticking out a little bit too much. So what I do, file it down a little bit. Not too terribly much. It's about 1/32 maybe. Okay, the next step, I've got a little tool with a taper on it, if I can find it. Let's see. Yeah, I thought I was prepared. Here it is. I already got it out. So this tool, it's this is a 3/32 ID hole right here. And what I want to do, this is an 1/8 inch piece of music wire I've got ground down to a taper. And that taper will allow you to flare it. Hi Charles. Thanks for coming in. Hope you're doing good out there. So anyway, this is a flaring tool, and then these two tubes here will also be flared also. So I'll install these and flare them. So let's get this camera over here a little bit, and won't be able to get a very good video here, but let's see here. I've got this camera sitting on a gallon of thinner. Gotta find my little hammer here. Hold on a second. Well, can't find the hammer I actually looking for. Give me about 30 seconds, I'll come up with another one here. Okay, these are little tack hammers, and they allow me to get a better feel of how much flare I'm getting. If you put your finger right down at the bottom against the bell crank and the bushing, you can actually feel how much flare you're getting, how much it's actually pushing the material away. So the washer just allows the flare to open up without getting into the carbon. So you have a shoulder on this end of the bushing, and you back the flare up with a washer. Now these little bushings are K&S brass tube. They're 1/8 inch OD, and the ID is 3/32. And a little tricky, they got maybe a little bit of burr on them. Once I get them started, I can sort of press them down in there. So these are cut to where they're the same thickness of the bell crank. There's no shoulder on them. And I flare those both sides. So there's one of them. The other in here. If you drop these on the floor, at least out here in this shop, you might as well just get another one. So I'll get it started and I'll press it down in there. Okay. So with this, you really can't see the flare, but it's pushing out pretty tight in the carbon. Lined up here. And what I do, even after flaring, if it's a little proud, I'll go ahead and clean it up a little bit. And then I like to go through there and deburr it. Just take a number 11 blade. Try to get a little bit of a chamfer in there. Okay, so now you've got your push rod bushing. Then you got your 2 lead out bushings here. The next step is to actually get the lead outs on it. Let's see. Yeah, Robert said he loves the layout of the new bench. I'm glad the video went through. Yeah, this little tack hammer, they're inexpensive, but they're perfect for stuff like this. And I do have an arbor press too, but these are pressed in so light that you really don't need it. Now, you could use it, but it's not necessary. So, okay, the next step. Okay, this is the 3/32 OD, and that's what I'm going to bush the lead outs with. So I'll sort of clean the dust out of the hole with it. So what I do with this K&S brass tube, I'll anneal it. Let's see if I can get this on video here. So I'm going to heat this brass up like an orange. Hey.
Package for Julie?
Yep. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, what are you doing here? Models?
Yeah, model airplanes.
That's cool.
See you later.
Yeah, bro, that's awesome. Have a good day.
Got a UPS package here. So anyway, just heat it up. It's probably like an orange. Let's see if I can lighten this up a little bit. One of the things with this OBS, you're able to go in this program and control the camera a little bit. So as far as the length, I'm not really sure. I'll measure it here. I sort of eyeball it. So I'm thinking I'm going to go with just about 2 inches, maybe a little less, 1 3/4. So doesn't take too long to cool. So I got my handy little tape measure here on the bench. I'll fold that back over. That's how long I make the second one. I was using Dremel tools a lot for the cutoff wheel, and it's like they cost me an arm and a leg at the time. I was going through so many discs and they break. So I switched over to that Harbor Freight deal, and that's worked out pretty good. Now, all I'm doing here is squaring the tube up. You know, this OBS deal, it's got so many settings in it. It'll be interesting to go through there and fine tune it maybe. I'm afraid to do too much right now because of the took me for a while to get it just to where I'm at. Okay, so I got the burr off the outside of it. Go back to the number 11 blade. And I try to put a nice little smooth chamfer on it. Now the next step coming up is going to be the swaging process. And the tool I use, I don't know, it's a special swage tool. And I bought this a long time ago. I can't even remember where I bought it. Maybe Carolina Steel and Wire. Now to get this tool in today's times, I think it's 55 bucks through Balsa USA. So Balsa USA started carrying this swage tool. It's right here. And what they do with it, obviously it's not control line, but they do the rigging on those World War I biplanes. It's the same tool as this. And they actually sell the cable and the swage furls. And the deal is with swaging, if it's done right, you're not actually smashing the tube per se, you're actually swaging it. So it's hard to see this thing because it's so small. But basically it's an oval. So this furl is shaped like this. And what this tool does, when these compound jaws like a bolt cutter come down on that furl, it takes the furl like this and it goes like this. So what happens is this soft copper, it embeds itself into the wire, and that's what gives you the strength. Now I've destruction tested a lot of these cables with these furls. I don't know, just a lot of them. I mean, I've never had one give loose. Now everything will break, but the furl never fails on the swage. So let's see, on a lead out, let me hold this up to my plane over here. I'm going to go with a lot of extra here because one of the things I'm going to do on this next plane I'm getting ready to finish, the lead outs, I don't want the furl or any of the terminations to cross paths. I want them to stay separate. So instead of the crimp and the eyelets and all that stuff going over the top of each other, it's going to create problems. So what I want to do is keep it like this so they never come together. Now this little tool, it has the cutter on it. This is when it's new, 2,870 feet, 1/32 1x19. That means there's 19 strands making up this one stainless steel strand. This was Carolina Steel and Cable, I think. I don't know if they're still in business or not. Okay, so if you get them frayed or they start to come loose, sometimes you can twist them like this to get it back on track. If not, you just cut it again. Okay, so you got to remember put this furl on there to crimp, swage. And then I'm going to take this tube and I just eyeball this part. I just look at it to make sure it's centered. I'll feed the cable through. Now don't worry about this length here. Just leave extra hanging because we're going to cut that off later. So the next step is like I said, eyeball it to where it's centered, and then I bend it over on itself. And what I like to do, I over crimp it. When I pull this back, it's past where it needs to be, and I rock it back and forth, and then I open it up a little bit as I'm rocking it, and then I work it back and forth. And you don't want these to be straight. Basically, you want this brass tube to follow the cable. Bring my crimp back up. So now, usually you want it, you don't want it tight like up in here. You want to leave a little room on it. And I like it just eyeball about like that. So I'm going to come in here, like right here, and cut this cable again. And that's why I didn't spend too much time on it. I'll see how it frayed a little bit, start to open up. I'll twist these together. It's no big deal. They'll fall right back into place. And get my furl back up here. Insert that. Okay, when it comes time to terminate this in the swage, I like to leave maybe 1/32 out. Okay, when you take this tool, you want to line it up. You want to make sure that this furl is crossways in that notch. So they got 1/32, 3/64, and a 16th. So if you buy this tool, you can get different cables and furls. You could do handles or whatever. We're going with the 1/32 since that's what this furl is. So like I said, make sure you line it up, sticking out a little bit, and then you crimp it. And then you come back. I always like to do a couple crimps. Come back in the middle. And you don't have to smash the end of this thing. You can just sort of, when this furl is crimped back here, but then the front of it's still like this, so it's not pinching the cable. And I'll leave the lead outs in a loop. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Don't forget to put this thing on the furl. Get your brass tube lined up. Now you got to anneal this. If you try to use this brass tube without annealing it, it'll crack and bind and you won't be able to make that bend. And I think that's true with no matter what bell crank you put it through. You got to make sure that it's annealed. Heat it up in like an orange. You don't have to go cherry red or anything. So your crimp, furl, extra over here, center it up, and you know it bends real easy. See how that bends? And over bend it and rock it. And then as you're rocking it and you twist it, you just try to open it up a little bit. And by doing that, you can see that it helps everything stay nice and free. I think by doing that, what you're doing is you're making a flat, instead of that curving through there, you're opening it up and then you're coming back and making a flat spot in it. And maybe that's where some of the people were having trouble with it sticking. They were going too tight, not opening it up, I don't know. Back in the day, I sold these things. Thinking back, is pretty cheap. Okay, I'm going to try to match what I got here. Sort of eyeball that. It looks good. It's a TLAR. It looks about right. And line the crimper up. Now I don't put the crimp all the way at the end. I'll leave a little flare on this, like that right there. And then I'll come down here and I'll do another one at this end, and I'll do a little bit more in the middle. These things will bottom out. When this thing is fully compressed, this will bottom out. And I forgot to cut that. But I'll show you how to fix that. I've done that before. So anyway, feels pretty good right now. It feels nice and free. Okay, here's the method if I forget to cut it. I'll show you here in a second. Basically, I'm gonna put a abrasive disc on this thing. This takes a little finesse. You got to make sure that you get it right. Otherwise, you got to cut it all off and do it over. And going with this method, you got to shield the opposing wire. You don't want to actually get this disc into your lead out. It's sort of a dangerous deal. But sitting there showing you how to do it, and I end up doing what I told you not to do. But I'll show you how to get around it if you do it, because I've done it before. Okay, so what I like to do, take this Dremel, and basically by putting this, not the Dremel, but take this X-Acto, by putting this X-Acto up next to the cable you want to keep, it keeps the disc from getting into the your lead out wire that you want to keep. See if I can get this lined up. By having this little bit of an X-Acto knife against it, just insurance. I'm not too worried about liability on this one. It's going in my airplane. So anyway, that gets you back to square one. You still have a little bit coming out. And, you know, of course, this is an 1/8 inch post, okay? This is where the bell crank rides. And what's going to happen, you're going to have epoxy down in there. Let me close the window out here. You're going to have epoxy, and you have to clean it and lap it. See the comments here. Yeah, Robert, thanks for the compliments. And thanks, Brent. Stood at this computer for like 3 hours figuring this OBS out. But it's fun. So see how that's tight, and you sort of lap it in. Sometimes if you get a real tight bushing, what I like to do is stick the drill or the music wire in the drill press, and then I'll actually turn it on and I'll lap it in. Now when you cook these bell cranks, and they're not cooked to super high temp, but the molding and everything, after a while, and the bearing just sitting there, they'll lose their oil. So this is sintered bronze, and it's a porous material, but it absorbs oil. So what you want to do once you get this thing all put together with your posts and everything, you want to add just a little bit of oil, just a drop or so on that and the bearing, and the bearing will absorb that oil. Now what I'm doing here is cleaning the epoxy off the outside of this bushing, and the reason why I'm doing this, I'm going to make a Delrin washer that is going to go over the top of this bearing up against this carbon, and it's going to extend past this bearing, or light bushing, or whatever you want to call it. So that way, when this bell crank is in the plane, let's just say this is your 1/8 inch rod in your wing, as this bell crank is rotating, it's rotating against the Delrin bushing. So these eyelets here, okay, I'm not going to be able to come up with the whole spiel, but these eyelets here, let me get one. Now what I do with these eyelets, see how it just falls? It basically just falls. I like to take this crimp tool and I come down to the bottom, which is the 1/16. Right in the middle, I put a little crimp right here. Okay, what that does, it holds this bushing in place. So if you JB weld this thing in place, it helps the bearing stay where you want it. See, it takes friction, so it's not just falling off. Now the bushing that you don't crimp, see, it'll fall off. So I like to put a crimp in the middle, and that leaves room in there for some JB weld and JB weld here. You don't want it oozing out everywhere, but so when you push this on, you're able to actually get the right clearance. So pretend there's a Delrin washer here extending past the oil light bushing. So when you put this on the rod, you want just, I don't know, just a little click, okay? You don't want it tight. You want a little few thousandths. Now, the top of this deal, let's see if I can find it. I don't know if I have any already machined. What I was doing on the top, here's one. I think I found one. Let's see here. My fingers are too fat for all these parts. I was machining these little things, and it was like a cone, and it would fit on. Let's see here. I can't find any in my box here. So if you know the ball ink, like the Rocket City ball inks, they sold these cones, and the cone would actually offset the ball. Here's one of them. Okay, let me dig this thing out. Okay, here's the little piece that went on the top, and these were made on the lathe. These are out of brass. So here again, you got to clean it up a little bit, and you got to press it over and get it started. And what I would do sometimes is I'd silver bearing solder this on there first, then clean it, oil it and clean it, and then insert this into the bell crank and finish it up with JB Weld. I never finished it up with epoxy. The only reason I could get away with soldering this on first is because everything was open and I could clean it. But that's like a little, it's like a little cone that fits over here, and that's goes up against this bearing here at the top. So that will get you the whole setup as far as being bushed and ready to go on a plane. And like I said, you want this to be really free. So sometimes you just scrape that epoxy out of there and put some oil on it. Just keep working it, because when basically you want this thing to just spin free will. And the other thing is on the bell crank, let's see here, you know, you want it to be free enough to where, you know, it'll fall in on its own weight. So one of the things that was brought to my attention after the fact, you know, when we got into this electric stuff, is everything has got to be super free. For some reason on these these old planes with the vibration, the harmonics, it kept everything sort of loosened up for some reason. So the electrics were so smooth and vibration free that any little catch in your control system would show up where you'd feel it. So I think that's why a lot of people were looking to the next generation. And the next generation basically is the same carbon bell crank, but basically it comes out, the bell crank at this attachment comes out in a fork like this. So it's flat in the center and it forks out. Where it forks, there'll be a bushing, let's just say a round button that goes on a post that goes this way. So it's actually, your lead out attachment is actually pivoting on the post, you know, that's going through this way. And I know how to do it. I've got it all worked out in my head. I need to make the parts and test them. But I'm about 95% sure of the design I came up with is going to work. So anyway, I thought I'd just go over the lead out attachment. And you know, you don't have to have a carbon bell crank. You can do this on any bell crank. Let's see, I think that's all I wanted to cover here. Here's my little box of all my little parts and stuff. This is what I dig around and try to find what I need. So these little dividers end up creeping up. I'll tell you what, you sure as heck wouldn't want to drop this on the floor. So yeah, here's a mock-up of what I was talking about. Some of you might have already seen this, but let's see if I can get this in the viewfinder here. It's got the fork on it, and these are the little buttons. So you can imagine the post going down through this, and your lead outs would go through that groove, and these little buttons would be captured in the fork like that. Lead outs would go through around the button. But that's in the works. Now that I got this shop straightened up somewhat, I think I'm going to be able to make some progress. So call Balsa USA up. I don't get any money for these things. They don't give me a kickback, and I bought this probably in the mid-90s. So give them a call, and they've got them. I was on their website the other day, and they had these things, and they got the cable for the rigging. So they could take care of you there. And it's a good tool to have. I mean, I've used this thing to hang pictures and hang stuff, and I was at a commercial job site and they wanted felt circles hung from the ceiling. I use this stuff right here, my lead out, and the guy says, "Where'd you get all that?" I said, "Well, it's a long story." But yeah, it comes in handy for a lot of things. For 54 bucks. So here's all my finished product. Here's one I had before. And like I said, this thing here, that bushing, people were putting a ball link on it, and basically you just run a 440 tap through that hole, fill it with JB weld, run the bolt through it, and then put a lock nut on the other end. I think that's what they're doing. Alrighty. So thanks for hanging out. Let me check my comments here. Oh yeah, Robert, yeah, walking through a store. Yeah, walk through a store and find all these little things that you could use in a hobby. Matter of fact, Robert, I go to the grocery store and I'd buy all these plastic cups to mix resin. So sometimes you never knew how much I was spending on supplies. It was just right in with the grocery bill. So, well, thanks for coming by and hanging out. And Balsa USA, and I've never seen their cable, but I'm pretty sure it's probably be the same. It's 1/32, 19 strands, stainless steel. So 1/32 is the outside diameter of the 19 strands. Okay, I'm gonna jump off here. I'm glad to get it working, and I'm looking forward to doing a bunch of videos here. It'd be nice just let this camera roll for a while and not have to worry about it shutting off on me. So I've got a lot of stuff piled up in here I need to go through and start working on. So thanks for coming by, and I'll talk to you later.